Hello, my name is Myra. Welcome back to another video. So for today's video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about my 12 favorite books of 2024. Now with that said, I do have more than 12 books that I enjoyed, but the way that I'm approaching this is that I am going based off of the books that I put on my reading planner. On my reading journal, I basically have a section where it has like your favorite books of the year. Yes, I failed to do some of the covers on there, but I'm just keeping it real that I totally failed to continue doing it. And instead of making it really pretty and pretending like I was caught up all year, I didn't want to lie, so I'm just being honest. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. What I did is basically each month I was thinking, okay, out of all of these books that I read in January that I really liked, which one was my favorite? And I was going like that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start off with my favorite book in January, which was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. So this book is about these two journalists who are pretty much work enemies, you can say, only because they are both competing for the same spot. There is one section in their paper for basically a column writer, and they both want this spot. These two are basically the top writers at their workplace, and so they are taking this very seriously because, again, this opportunity is pretty rare. And while this is also going on, there's also a war going on between these two gods, and so they figure that the way to maybe try to get this spot is by going to where these battles are being taken place and try to record it, and try like record it by writing and stuff like that. They didn't have cameras or anything in this book, and document it so that hopefully their work stands out and they are able to get the top spot. Now, while this is also happening, there's a lot of things going on in both of their private lives, specifically in the female main character's life. Her brother actually went to go serve in this war that is going on between these two gods, and she has not heard back from her brother. She doesn't even know if he's alive. And she's pretty much been venting and writing all of her feelings into this typewriter. So what she does is that she'll type a letter in this typewriter, she'll fold the note into a closet, and the letter disappears. So she has no idea where these letters are going. She kind of hopes that these are going to her brother, but she really doesn't know. She actually discovered that these letters disappear if she puts them in a particular place by accident. Until one day she actually gets a reply from someone letting her know this is not your brother. And so she is kind of like, who have I been writing all these things to? Because now I'm finding out that they clearly are going somewhere. And so there's like some mystery elements to it, and it is YA, and I didn't really think I would like it, but I absolutely loved it. With that said, I do have book 2, and have I read it? No, I have not, but I do plan to. I do want to. It was a soft DNF for that one because I started reading it and then I got completely immersed in some other books. But so far, Divine Rivals, definitely, like, I loved it. The hype was worth it. It was great. My book for February, I actually don't physically have it, but this was Twilight of Embers by Tessa Hale. So this series is about dragon shifters, and it's a why choose romance. You have our heroine who moves away from Northern California. She moves into this college and she's gonna live there on the dorm and everything. And on her very first day, she runs into this guy and she kind of feels this connection to him, but she's like, okay, that's weird. Like, I just met him. That's kind of weird. But from then on, they kind of start building this friendship, and he is very like protective of her. He wants to be around her all the time. And he ends up introducing her to his brothers. Now, he does have one twin brother, but the rest of his brothers are like brothers by choice. They're not really brothers by blood. And she feels this attraction to all of them, and she doesn't really know why. And she's like, why am I attracted to all of these guys? And she feels a little bit guilty too, because she feels like she should only be really attracted to that one guy that she met first. But she ends up finding out that they are dragon shifters, and not only are they dragon shifters, but she's a dragon shifter herself. She obviously had no idea that was the case because her parents were actually brutally murdered when she was a little kid, and she was basically put into the foster system. So she doesn't really know much about her background. She's never shifted herself, so she doesn't really believe them and doesn't really know. But then all these other people start going after her, and these guys basically have to protect her. But while they're protecting her, they're also all having a good time. The spice was immaculate. I devoured this whole series, and if you want to listen to the audiobooks, these are actually, like, since it's 5 heroes and the one heroine, there are 6 narrators in this book. Highly recommend it. The books themselves it's a quick trilogy. The books are really fast, and there's a lot of action. All these heroes are all very different. You have a set of twins where one of them is basically golden retriever, the other one is very like bully, very mean, very closed off. And then one of them, he's actually a professor. He's a very young professor at this university, but he's a professor, so he's very like studious and stuff like that. And then you have another one that's more Viking, more kind of rough around the edges. And then the fifth one is the alpha, and he is actually like the billionaire mafia boss vibe. So you really get a little bit of everything with these heroes, and I just could not put these books down. My book for March was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I absolutely devoured this book. This book has a lot of Hunger Game type vibes, which I won't lie, at parts did take me out of the story, because I'm like, oh, okay, this is feeling a little too Hunger Gamey for me. But it was still a really good book, and I absolutely devoured the entire thing. I actually met Lauren Roberts, and she's so sweet. She signed the book right there. But yeah, so Powerless, you have these people who basically live in a world where everybody has a sort of ability. Some people are like mind readers, some people can you know, are like psychics, some people have super strength, some people can like clone themselves, some people like they can do different things, they're shapeshifters, things like that. You have Peyton in this book, and she is an ordinary, meaning she doesn't have any powers, and she has to keep that very hush hush, or else she will likely be unalived. And on the other hand, you have our enforcer Kai, and Kai is the son of the king, but he's not the oldest son, so he's the second oldest son, and he is the enforcer. So his brother is going to be the one that will eventually become king, and his job is to enforce the rules and things that the kingdom actually wants to put into place. And one day Peyton accidentally helps Kai out when Kai is being attacked, and without her knowing who he is, she ends up getting like this honor of going to go compete in these games where you're gonna get a bunch of money and stuff like that. But she's scared because she has been lying this whole time and pretending to be psychic and pretending to have these abilities, when really she's just really good at observing and getting people's tells. And so now she gets thrown into these games, into this competition, and one of the people that she's competing against is Kai. So she is like, oh my gosh, like I need to not only like lie to all these people, and all of this is gonna be like televised, but also the enforcer, the son of the king, the one that literally goes around unaliving people, is also in these games. So I also have to be really careful around him. But while this is going on, they're of course doing interviews, and there's balls and all these things are going on, and her and Kai start to kind of form this connection. But at the same time, she is also forming a connection with Kai's brother, the future king. So there is a little bit of like a love triangle-ish thing. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of deception, a lot of action, high stakes. So it was a really entertaining read. Now for April, I went ahead and picked Binding 13. This is a special edition cover. In fact, if I take off, this is a dust jacket. I mean, the dust jacket is already beautiful, and it is actually reversible, but the reverse side basically shows you this cover right here. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is the Eternal Embers special edition with Larry Reads. I loved this book. If you don't know what this book is, even though I've talked about it so many times, you basically have these two teenagers set in 2006 Ireland. He is a future rugby like all-star. He already is pretty famous, even though he's only still technically like what would be considered like a senior in high school. And she is a freshman. She's going into this new school. She's getting transferred into this school, and or actually she's a sophomore. I think she's like a sophomore. Anyway, she ends up transferring to the school because she was being very heavily bullied at this other school. And when she starts going to the school, she's just trying to kind of keep her head down, but there's like a little bit of like a meet cute, although it's kind of a harsh meet cute, because she ends up being at the nurse's office thanks to a ball that he threw or kicked. I don't remember, one of the two. Point is that these two end up forming a sort of friendship, and he finds her incredibly beautiful, but also he kind of feels like he just wants to take care of her and protect her. And she's very quiet and reserved because a lot of people don't know, but there is a lot of physical and verbal abuse going on in her home with her father in particular. She has, I think 3, 4, 5 other siblings, but her oldest brother moved out of the house, and there's all these things that are going on in her house. I'll definitely recommend checking triggers, because this book, although it is young adults, the topics are very heavy, and all of the books are heavy. They all have a trauma and things that these characters have been through, but I absolutely loved it. Binding and Keeping 13 are about Johnny and Shannon, but you have Saving and Redeeming 6, which is Joey and Aoife's book. And then you have, I think it's Taming 7, and that is Gibbs's book, which is his best friend's. I loved this whole series, but this book was definitely my favorite. This is what started it all, and I highly, highly recommend it. Just check your triggers. And then for May, I have another book that I do not own physically, but I absolutely devoured it, and that is The Mad King and the False Queen. This is a fantasy book, but you basically have this princess and this member of her like protection program, and they end up switching places, and she's pretending to be the princess because they were gonna send the princess to meet this mad king, and they're like, there is no way that we're gonna send you there, because if we send you there, who knows what his plan really is, and if he's trying to like unalive you, he won't be able to, because guess what, I won't be the real princess. And so they swap places, and the book is basically following them two on these new adventures and these things that they're both trying to find out. She's trying to get answers over this other mystery that's going on, and this other one is of course impersonating the princess and pretending to be the princess to meet with this mad king and find out why he's summoning her, what he wants with her, and eventually like if they're gonna get married, if it's gonna be an arranged marriage and things like that. But it is so interesting, so crazy. There is so much like that you don't know when you're reading this book, and the second book is out already, which I'm actually going to be picking up soon. I'm hoping I finish it before the end of the year, but if not, it'll be a very early January read. But I'm so excited to read the second book because I've waited literally since May for the second book to come out. So highly, highly recommend it if you like any sort of like royalty, high stakes, you don't have all the answers, you're finding out as they find out type of book. June, I've talked about this book a lot, so I'm gonna try not to. It's a book that you should go in blind anyway. Highly recommend the audiobook. The audiobook is absolutely delicious. I'll wait forever if I have to. I think about this book constantly. The people that do not read that I've told about this book have all said that there should be a movie about this book. There are movies that have similar touches to this book, and I won't say which ones because that'll ruin the book, but it's so good. So, so good. I highly recommend the audiobook. It's just good, okay? I'm not gonna go into it. It's good. It's a mind trip. Yeah, it's good. Then for July, I have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Absolutely loved this book. So in this book, you have this heroine whose aunt just passed away, and she was really, really close with her aunt. Her aunt and her were actually super, super close. They would go on trips all the time, and she basically inherits her aunt's apartment. And her aunt used to always tell her that this apartment was magical, that there was magical elements and magical things in this apartment. And she believed her aunt when she was a child, but she didn't really know, right? Now, when she inherits the apartment, she ends up moving in, and one day when she comes home, or actually I think when she goes to sleep, I don't know, there's this man in her apartment, and he's like, yeah, your aunt said that I could stay here, so that's why I'm staying here. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that my aunt said that you could stay here, but okay, cool, I guess you're gonna stay here. But she ends up finding out that he is 7 years in the past, and she's 7 years in the future. So basically picture this, like you walk into your apartment and you're either walking in on like your time, or you're walking into an apartment that is 7 years in the past. And they end up forming this connection. He is an aspiring chef. She works in like the publishing industry, and there's just like this whole thing, and you're thinking like, are they gonna eventually meet? Are the timelines gonna align? Like, where was he and where was she? Like, you know, because again, he's 7 years in the past, she's 7 years in the future, and she's thinking like, is he with someone now? Like, I don't know. But they have this like really deep connection, and it's just magic in the apartment. And also it tugs at your heartstrings because of her aunt, and she's having flashbacks of things with her aunt. And yeah, it's such a good book. I loved the magical element in this book, and just overall the message in the book as well. So highly recommend it. I really, really enjoyed this book. And yeah, lemon. I kept thinking about the lemon Girl Scout cookies. I don't know if you guys know which ones I'm talking about. When I was reading this book, that's all I kept thinking about. And I really want some. Are you able to get them throughout the year? I don't think so. I think it's only a particular time. My August book was Trick. So in Trick, you actually, fun fact before I jump in, Natalia Jaster actually re-released this book. So what she actually mentioned when I met her for like the second time and I actually got my book signed was that she released this, I want to say back in 2016. Let me double check, but I think she released this no, the first edition was in 2015, and she actually re-released this in 2022. She added a few things. She said that there was a few things that she changed around. She got some sensitivity readers to do some stuff for her, and so she made a lot of changes to this book. The reviews on Goodreads though are kind of mixed, so that kind of is unfortunate because some of the reviews are based on like the first release and some of them are based on the second release. I've only read the second release book, so I can only talk about this one, but I absolutely loved it. In this book, you have royalty, you have these different courts that they meet together at one of the courts to just kind of have fun and party, etc. Now you have this princess from the Autumn Court, and she's very reserved. The Autumn Court themselves are very quiet, very reserved. They are not as like fun and lively and sexually open as the Spring Court. But when they go to the Spring Court, there is this court jester, and basically he's the one, you know, entertaining and doing all these things. And he kind of is picking on her very early on in the book, and she is like annoyed because she feels like he's trying to like make fun of her in front of everybody, and she's the butt of the joke. But also she's kind of attracted to him, and he has this pull. Like, he has men and women that want to be with him. He is very much a playboy. But as the story goes on, she ends up seeing that there's actually this whole other side of him, and that this whole like playful nature is actually not a mask, but it does have an ulterior motive as well. And it's his way of trying to have some control, which I don't want to spoil anything, but it is such a good book. This is a slow burn book, and there are some chapters that I literally was like, I think I was holding my breath. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, is it gonna happen? And let me tell you, when things finally start to happen, you are just like, oh my gosh, like, finally. But also so good. And there are more books in this series which I haven't jumped into, but I will be. This is definitely a series that I want to continue reading. So excited. But yeah, Trick by Natalia Jester. Pick up the second version. Highly recommend it. My book for September was Lights Out by Navisa Allen. This is actually the probably smut special edition. I had to get it. I'm not subscribed to it, but I found it on Mercari for the same price and I had to buy it. This book I listened to, I was laughing out loud. So she is a trauma nurse, which is very serious. She actually, and I would recommend looking up triggers. Look up triggers for all of them, okay? Just in case. All the books that I mentioned, some of them you probably don't need to, but just look up triggers. Anyway, she's a trauma nurse and she sees some pretty crazy stuff during her shift. But she has a little secret, and her secret is that she actually loves the idea and the fantasy of a masked man and being with a masked man. And he actually has a like almost like a TikTok where he does basically these thirst trap videos. He's always wearing a mask. Sometimes he's shirtless. He's doing certain things. And a lot of women follow his TikToks and love watching his videos. Now, she, like I said, is a trauma nurse, but she doesn't know that he actually already knows about her. Now, he doesn't know that she likes watching his videos, and obviously she doesn't even really know who he is, but he already has this fascination with her before he accidentally finds out that she is actually into his videos. And so when that happens, his like obsession and fascination with her just grows even more, and he starts to stalk her. But he does things like when she's done with her shift, he's already there waiting for her in the car with her, and her car is warm so that she doesn't have to be cold because it's winter. He like feeds the cat, or I don't know if he feeds the cat, but he like gets along with her cat, and he like does all these little things for her, but also he's like stalking her and following her. But she's also kind of into it because she's like, who are you? Like, what is going on? So it's this whole like cat and mouse type of game, but it's so fun and such a good time. Kind of surprised me, but I really liked it. And it actually was really entertaining. It's described as like a dark rom-com, and I would definitely say it's very rom-com-y. There's also a slight like mafia element in here that gets thrown in there, which honestly that part was a little bit weird. But yeah, there's some murder and some other stuff in here, and yeah, I want to annotate this book because it was so fun. But I don't know if I should do it to this one or if I should buy a different version. No, I'll do it to this one. Anyway, really liked it. Really recommend it. For October, it was a very similar book because after reading Lights Out, there was other people that were recommending the series by Bryn Weaver, and that was Leather and Lark. So Leather and Lark is technically the second book. Butcher and Blackbird are the first one, but I listened to Butcher and Blackbird right after Lights Out and I enjoyed it. And then I listened to Leather and Lark immediately after that and I loved it. I loved Leather and Lark a lot more. I think it was just more like, he's more grumpy. I think I really like grumpy heroes. Like I'm finding that out about myself. And he's grumpy. She kind of comes from like a family of money, but also she's like a singer. And he ends up helping her with something, but with what he helped her with, it's a secret because no one knows that about her. So there's like this whole secret side of her that no one knows about, and there's all these other things that he does that no one really knows fully about him. And he's also very quiet, very reserved, and he's really good with leather items, which is why his nickname is Leather, and her nickname is Lark, or actually I think her name is Lark. I don't remember, but it was a good time. And especially after listening to Lights Out, I really wanted to be in like the same vibe, same mood, but definitely look up triggers because there are some dark things that are mentioned in this book. There are some very dark things that are done throughout the book. And actually one of the funniest things that I found about these two books, both Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark, is that the narrators, when they were talking about the trigger warnings, they did it in such a funny way, but like the trigger warnings are also like, wait, what? Like, come again, you know? But anyway, such a good time. Definitely recommend it, especially if you've read Lights Out. I recommend those two, or if you've listened to those two, listen to Lights Out. You'll love it. Then in November, Quicksilver. Absolutely devoured, loved it. Only thing I didn't fully like about this one is the fact that his name is Kingfisher. I'm like, Kingfisher, like, is Fisher his name? Is his whole name Kingfisher? I don't know. I don't really know. Honestly, I don't really think I understood that whole part. But this is such a good book. He is such a jerk to her. He's such a jerk to her, but it was so, so good. And I know that sounds so bad, but it was so good. The banter between these two, he absolutely loathes her. And then like the spice in this book was incredible. You have vampire fae, you have regular fae, you have obviously humans, and you have magic, and you have all these things, and it's very high stakes, and it is a big book, but I would recommend the audiobook. I am going to be annotating the crap out of this book because I just loved it, but I highly, highly recommend the audiobook because you will literally laugh out loud in some parts. Lastly, for December, I'm going to choose a book that I just recently finished, but I honestly really enjoyed it, and that is Wyatt by Jessica Pearson. So Wyatt is a small town cowboy romance. It is the second book in a series. The first book was Cash. Cash is still my favorite, but Wyatt is a very close second. These men are just your cowboy, green flag, hot, sexy, hardworking men. Wyatt in particular is a small town friends to lovers romance. I am very picky when it comes to my friends to lovers because it has to be done in a particular way. I don't want them to have always been attracted to each other because then I feel like that's not really friends to lovers. Like you guys just didn't talk. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense. In this one, I felt like there was significant reason as to why. Not only because when at the start of the book, it's when Wyatt's, again, Cash's parents and like the rest of his brother's parents just passed away, and she's about to move away for college. So he's gonna stay to work on the ranch, and she's about to move away for college. And she moves away to college and, you know, does all these things, becomes this like absolutely incredible vet. Not just a vet, but she's like a veterinary like surgeon, and she's really, really good at her job. She's a doctor, and she ends up coming back to the small town before moving over to New York. So the small town is in Texas. She's there, she's working with the horses, and while she's there, she discovers, you know what, I want to have fun. I need some more confidence in the bedroom, and who better to help me than my playboy hot best friend Wyatt. Now Wyatt starts to help her, but very quickly ends up getting very protective, very, you know, if anyone's gonna teach you, it's gonna be me type of vibe, which is where like a friends with benefits type thing happens. But also, can they really only be friends? Because she's kind of like, she used to have a crush on him back in the day when they were teenagers, and now she's kind of like, I don't know. And he's kind of like, I know I let her go once, but am I really gonna let her go again? And it was just awesome. These boys are these men, I should say, are just walking green flags. And also, I like that these are older heroes. He is 30 years old. His brother was, I think, 33, Cash. So again, you have older, mature adults, and I just absolutely loved it. If you're thinking, Myra, cowboys are just not my thing, small town romance is just not my thing, go read Cash. go read Wyatt, and then come again and tell me if that's still the case, because I loved it. I love these books. They're quick reads. These guys, like I said, walking green flags, like bright green flag, like bright like my shirt. That is what these men are. So yeah, these are my 12 favorite books of 2024. Like I said, I loved and enjoyed so many other books, but these are the 12 that I had to pick them, you know? I looked at what I read that month and I'm like, this is a winner. This is a winner. Let me know which ones were your favorite. I'm very, very curious to know what your 12 favorite books or more of the year were. Let me know. I'll add them to my never-ending TBR list. I've made peace with that fact that I will never read all the books on my TBR. And also, if you want to read any of these, let me know. Let me know which ones made you curious, which ones you're gonna pick up. And yeah, thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.